I didn't strive for success. I strived to do something artistically important.
Hi, this is Blaudus from Musical Motivation, and this video is about David Bowie. And what first struck me about David Bowie was there was a quote, "Don't play for others, play for yourself, create music, create art for yourself," and that really stuck with me. And, you know, David Bowie is clearly a cultural icon, but when I dug into his interviews more, I found out that, you know, a lot of his work actually didn't achieve much success, and he kept creating anyway, and he created so much. And, you know, even near the end of his life, he was still inspired to keep creating, and he had that spark and that passion. I wanted to find out what was behind that. And, you know, he really does a great job of explaining his motivation in these interviews, and I hope you find inspiration from it too.
It's all a question of guesswork. And I was probably one of the better guessers about him, because he won't talk. He'll talk on stage and he'll talk in songs, but he won't talk the rest of the time.
I would write albums that had concepts behind them, because that would enable me to be able to create a character, and the character would then be able to go on stage and do the songs. So I took myself further and further from writing about me, and always I was imbuing the characters that I was writing for with their own personalities. I mean, but that's not necessarily exactly what really happens, because looking back now, I can see that a lot of those albums, in fact, I was writing about myself, but my presumption at the time is that I was writing about somebody else.
I mean, there's never in between, at least. And it's been like that all my life, you know. People have either really accepted what I do, or they absolutely sort of push it away from them. And I guess I've gotten used to that, and that's kind of, I guess that's what I am, you know. Sometimes I'm useful currency, and other times I'm not.
What happens to oneself as a person, one does it to oneself. Anything that's happened to me is because of my behavior or my experiences. Nobody from the outside damages me. Nobody from the outside does that. If I cause damage to myself, it's me that's causing the damage. But often you run into the damaging things in an act of evasion, of addressing yourself and finding out what you're about, where your heart is, how you relate to other people. Why don't you relate to other people? You know?
I'd break down the problem by actually painting it. I'd try and visualize what the problem was, that the sense of these textures were grating against each other in a way that wasn't admirable. And I try and visualize those textures and paint them, and then find out what was wrong. And then when I'd solve that problem, I'd take it back into the studio. I've never really compartmentalized things. Everything for me is just this flux of doing stuff. Some of it's music and some of it's visual.
Being an artist in any way, any nature, is a kind of a sign of a certain kind of dysfunction, a social dysfunctionalism anyway. It's an extraordinary thing to want to do, to express yourself in such rarefied terms. I think I think it's a loony kind of thing to want to do. I think the saner and rational approach to life is to survive steadfastly and create a protective home and create a warm, loving environment for one's family and get food for them. That's about it. That's actually all. Anything else is extra. All culture is extra. Culture is, you know, that's, I guess it's a freebie. It's something that we only need to eat. We don't need particular color plates or particular height chairs or anything. I mean, anything will do, but we insist on making 1,000 different kinds of chairs and 15 different kinds of plates. It's unnecessary, and it's a sign of the irrational part of man, I think. We should just be content with picking nuts. Not mine, I might add.
I don't begrudge any artist for getting an audience. I'm sorry, I never found that poverty meant purity. That's rubbish.
For a guy who doesn't like to play it safe, though, as the audience gets larger, it must be harder to take those chances.
Well, I think if I were sort of a more cautious person, it would be difficult and a bit sort of claustrophobic, because I would now feel that I shouldn't do things that were maybe quite as artistically dangerous or off the wall as I would have done before. But actually, I find it quite, I feel a bit naughty about it, because it means that I can do really what I want to do to a large audience.
I think when you're real young, you don't honestly expect that one, that you'll still be around after like 30, something like that. And there's secondly, I don't think you ever conceive that you'd still want to write music and play it when you get into you. Because your picture of somebody in their 40s getting into their 50s is usually one's own father, you know? And the generational jump and the attitude of those two generations it's such a quantum leap that I think to find that one still is excited by music and still wants to play, you know, it's really invigorating.
But this is the was it all worth it question.
Oh, no, you wouldn't do that to me.
You strive for success since you're 16. How calculated is any of this?
That's bollocks. Calculation, it's rubbish. I mean, it's no more calculated than any actor preparing and creating a part. It just happens that in the genre of rock, it's unusual for a rock artist to be kind of different off stage from what he's supposed to be on stage. But I just wanted to bring the idea of performance and acting into rock. Not at all. I mean, I've only really experienced commercial success with Let's Dance, and that came right out of the blue, completely. And I don't ever expect it to happen again. I really, no, not at all.